Hello. Today is a fifth line day. We're exploring the 36, gate 36 in the solar plexus, the gate of crisis, the gate that is called the darkening of the light. And here in the fifth line, we have the underground. In the traditional I Ching, in the Chinese I Ching, every fifth line was considered exalted in every hexagram because this is the universalization of that hexagram. And it's the place where we find the projection from the rest of the hexagram onto this line. This is how society wants to see this hexagram. It's always the same in every five. This is the dynamic or the mechanic that you find within the structure of the hexagram. So it's interesting that we go from the first line, which is the truth of the hexagram, which is called resistance in this case, and then we go to the fifth line, which is called the underground. In any good spy story, the resistance is usually in the underground. So it's quite, the way that that works together is quite fun. In the exaltation, perfected survival regardless of conditions, immunity to crisis as both generator and survivor. Mm. So the 36.5 will have their experience and they will survive their experience. And it's not personal. They are here to have their experience. That's all the 36 wants. It's here for the experience. It's actually the whole experiential way. It's not personal and it's not about anything else other than having the experience. Even the sharing is not particularly personal. The sharing is just part of being collective. Hey, let's all have this experience together. But then when you talk about it in a sort of collective way, you are sharing your individual, kind of individual, your own personal experience. But it's not about the other person necessarily. You're not so interested in what their experience was. It's if you find people who've got a lot of collectiveness, a lot of collective circuitry, and you listen to how they speak and how they share things with you, just see what kind of things you can pick up. It's very interesting, not from any kind of judgment or anything like that at all, but all the circuits, or the three circuits, they have a different way of speaking, and it's fun to listen to it. Is when you listen to the tribe are the ones who have the conversations, and very often, yeah. Anyway, just play with it and see what you come up with yourself. I won't influence you in what my observations are on that. So the fifth line, when they are really of value for others, that's when they've been through experiences. No matter what their situation is, they can always move from inexperience to experience, and they always will. And damn the consequences, as far as the fifth line goes. They are out to have their experience. This is the nature, actually, of this whole hexagram. Let's have the experience and damn the consequences. We'll deal with them when they come. The fifth line waits and it watches. And it is assumed that the desire for a new experience is always going to be projected on them, that they can have the desire for a new experience and provide the necessary emotional energy to manifest that experience. Now, it's always projected on them and they have to wait for their moment. And of course, fifth line's very good at that. They wait for that moment of real crisis. And so the fifth line, in many ways, is at its best here in this gate of crisis, waiting for the right moment that comes to them in their wave where they can, yeah, jump in and save the day. And it's the crisis of the 35 that they want, really, the other end of the channel. They wait for that moment when the 35 absolutely needs its practical solution. It's the 35 that's saying, give me the energy to be able to manifest. Give me the energy to get out of this boredom that I'm feeling, to do something new. I'm experienced, but I'm bored and I want to do something else. And the 36.5 is just sitting there waiting. Are you in a crisis yet? No, no, I'm not feeling the crisis yet, so I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. And then in that moment, it gets to release its power and it gets its desire fulfilled. And then it naturally pulls away again because that's the nature of the fifth line. You go in, you do your job, you pull back out again. And because it's a line of universalization and it's a manifestor energy, it can have a great impact. In the detriment, we have a nervousness that can lead to self-betrayal, self-betraying nervousness in a time of crisis. So the whole neural system that operates in the solar plexus is rooted in nervousness. You're going up and you're nervous that it's going to end, and you're going down and you're nervous that it's never going to end. And there's always that sense of nervousness in the emotional system. And if you are emotionally defined, it's one of the ways we chart any decision that we're going through is, depending how nervous we are and how does that feel. And I mean, it's a subtle thing, but this is part of the way that we would describe it. Is the moths of doom and the butterflies of excitement. It's a fine line. Where do you find your way in the wave? And how do you know? It takes a lot of work, really, I feel. And as an emotionally defined person, I've been working for many years. I suppose it's been one of the biggest things I've had to learn. It's what does it feel like when I'm running a not a crisis, when I'm running a decision, when I'm running a decision. So what's your experience of that? How do you chart that feeling? Does it feel like nervousness to you? Because this is the classic description for the solar plexus. But there is always a nervousness in the emotional system. We'll just go with that. The nervousness is having to wait in a way. It's just pulling back. But imagine, this is Ra's description again. Imagine a drug smuggler and they get to the airport, right? And they're just making their way towards security and to that border control, and they're the first in line. The nervousness doesn't have a chance to emerge. But then imagine that you've got someone who's got coming up to security and it's a long line, and maybe there's a dog there and it takes time, and slowly that nervousness begins to build. It begins to emerge, and a little bit of sweat shows up, and then there's a little bit of all of this stuff as they're having to wait because they know the crisis is coming. And so that feeling is building up. They can feel it coming, and sometimes they can let go without their opportunity of actually going through it, because what they want is the experience at the other end. You don't want to peak too early. They know when a crisis is coming. They want to participate in the crisis, and sometimes the excitement is just too much for them, and they let it out too early. Premature, oh, what's the other word? Yeah, premature participation in the crisis. And if this is your tendency, Ra said, then perhaps drug smuggling is not for you. And of course, this is a metaphor for many things. The 36-5 are probably the most honest people who create crisis. Sometimes their honesty gets them into trouble. They're the kind of people who will confess to someone and get themselves into trouble in order to have the crisis. So the general has to sit and wait. You have to wait for its moment. And in that, it could be subject to letting the cat out of the bag. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. There are so many, but yes, you can play with this, can't you, so much. Anyway, manifesting channels are always subject to punishment. This is something Raya talked about quite a lot as a manifestor. A manifesting channel that doesn't use its strategy around using its power will be punished, and there's no way to escape that. In the same way that a generator who doesn't wait to respond, they'll be frustrated. Nothing will stop that. And a projector who doesn't wait to be recognized and invited is going to be bitter. And there's nothing to stop that. So really, it just seems fairly logical that it's a lot nicer to be yourself in this world, to operate correctly. Ra said the 36-5 can end up being fascinating or deeply boring. If they do not have an interesting life, then they will just tell you over and over and over again the same things. Maybe the one instant in their life that was exciting and interesting, and it can just drive you crazy. So the grounding is coming through the sixth gate in the fifth line, and it's called arbitration. The arbitrator is someone who is called in to settle disputes or conflicts. Disputes that arise in a time of crisis, of course. So this again is a perfect position for the fifth line. These two gates working together, bringing the fifth line in, it's great, perfect, excellent. Mercury is going retrograde today, moving back into gate 17 at 09:47. It was only in the 21 for 2 days, and now it's just sliding on back there to sit in the gate of opinions, logically defending its positions, hopefully with the right facts, and hopefully waiting to be invited before it shares its fabulous opinions. No, it's not supposed to do anything with its opinions because the ajna is not a motor. It's not even supposed to share them without an invitation, although this is the collective and there's a strong imperative to share in the collective. The moon has been in gate 57 since 1:22 this morning, having pulses of intuitive insight and clarity, which can be really empowering because this is an individual gate. And it's also a gate in integration, so it can be much more interested in its own survival and its own process. And gate 32 is next on the moon's journey. It moves into the 32 at 12:44. This is the tribal gate of continuity and duration, where the only thing that endures is change. This is the most conservative gate in the body graph. The tribe doesn't really like innovation and change, not for its own sake, anyway. If the 32 spots a trend that looks like it's going to run the distance and bring material success for the tribe, then it can adapt. But otherwise, there, why bother? It will bring upheaval, and the tribe doesn't want upheaval. And then we have gate 50. Gate 50 is the gate of values, it's the cauldron, it's setting down the values for the tribe. Humanity as a species, we need to have rules to live by so we can all get along. It's the theory anyway, huh? These rules, they can be adapted if necessary. Evolution in all forms, it needs to have this sort of framework around it. And it does adapt, it does evolve at one time or another. And with good rules and good values, then we can survive into the future. Oh, so that's us. That is us in the fifth line, the 36.5. So you know what it means for tomorrow, guys, don't you? Top of the hexagram. Yeah, the top of the hexagram to you is coming your way tomorrow, the YouTube channel near you. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you're loving yourselves. I hope this is a necessary part of your day to spend some part of every day loving yourself. I'm doing a conscious language course at the moment. It's a year-long study in listening to what we say and or what I say, listening to what I say, because this is the other thing, we bring it back, make it personal, to listening to the things that I say and the things that I think, and then looking at how they are reflected in my environment and in my body and all the different ways that maybe I've sabotaged myself without even realizing it. And so it's like spend a little bit of every day loving myself purely and cleanly and just because I can. And I offer you that possibility, that invitation, if you would like to. Would you like to do that? Just, yeah, have a peek in the mirror, tell yourself how fabulous you are. I will see you tomorrow for the sixth line. And until then, go gently.